you wrote a piece in the Times just today, and you said, "It is time for us to accept that American politics is identity politics." Tell us what you meant by that.
I meant that we have spent a lot of time, and by we, again, I mean myself, people in the media, I think academics, researchers, and politicians certainly have spent a lot of time saying that identity politics is dangerous, or at least it's murky, right? This is why we said Occupy was a distraction for the Democrats. Black Lives Matter was a distraction for the Democrats, right? The feminist movement is a distraction for the Democrats because they won't focus on real issues that matter to real Americans, right? The problem with that is that you assume that the only people with an identity are women and people of color. But as Donald Trump has proven, what he has proven and the way he has won has proven is that every voter has an identity. Every voter has an identity, and he tapped into one of the most powerful of American identities. He tapped into white identity. Right? And he said, you don't need to be ashamed of this identity. I'm going to give it a name, and I'm going to make you feel good about it, and you don't have to sacrifice a thing. Donald Trump played identity politics like a fiddle. So when you say that the Democrats lose because we play identity politics, it simply isn't true. This is about whose identities win when you appeal to them. That means you should double down on the identities of your base. I think that if you appeal more directly, actually, to people's identities, how they see their identities, then you could play the game that Trump has played, but without all of the nefarious, self-serving, self-aggrandizements.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. We got to continue our coverage of the meltdowns from the left, okay, because I'm telling you guys, as long as Democrats continue to be in bed with far leftists, race hustlers, woke extremists, they're going to have some issues, right? They're going to have some issues. And what you're seeing happening on the mainstream liberal media is a very interesting dynamic, okay? It's a very interesting dynamic. You have those who happen to be white and Democrats trying to talk some sense into the far left loonies who happen to be not white, right? You're seeing that kind of happen over and over and over again in the liberal media, right? But they have to be careful in regards to how they do it, because the far left loonies that happen to be not white are extremely sensitive, right? They're extremely emotional right now. They're convinced that in their minds, this election was not about the economy, stupid. It was about Kamala Harris's race and her sex. It was about sexism, bigotry, racism. That's what it was about. And they are refusing to accept any other explanation except more than half the country is bigoted, okay? They're racist, they're sexist, and that's why Kamala lost, okay? It doesn't have to do with anything else, right? And that is what this emotional race hustler is going to say on MSNBC as Stephanie Rule tries to talk some sense into him, okay, about why Kamala lost, and this guy is just going to refuse to accept that it had anything to do with the economy, stupid. Take a look.
Eddie, how do you frame where we are in this moment as Trump and his agenda comes into focus?
I've been trying to figure it out, to be honest with you. There is a kind of ugliness that has haunted this experiment since its formation. And we can talk about the alienation of the working class. We can talk about Latino men voting for Donald Trump, but this country just elected a convicted felon who has been held liable for sexual assault, who traffics in the ugliest and most insidious language around race and sexism that you can imagine. And he may not have the money to engage in mass deportations, but the fear, the terror that people will have to live with daily, ICE showing up in their neighborhoods, being denaturalized, my wife, right? All of that is here now. And so I don't know what these people have done. I have no idea what they have wrought. But I do know that it feels familiar. So.
Peter, you've covered so many administrations.
There's this sense, right, that whiteness, right, is under threat. The demographic shifts. The country isn't what all of these racially ambiguous children on Cheerios commercials are confusing the hell out of me.
Right? Eddie, a lot of people voted because their life's too damn expensive. And it was here, and it
They
was
voted for, you're telling me, Stephanie, that all of these people who believe that their lives are, that bread is too high and eggs are too high, that they voted for a convicted felon, a guy who said we can grab the pea.
I think that a lot
They
of people,
voted for this
listen,
guy.
I'm not defending it, but I think there are tons of people that don't pay attention to, and I'm not defending it, don't pay attention to politics at all. But while we live in the most prosperous country in the world, people are saying life's not fair, I'm not doing well, my son's still living in the basement, I can't seem to get a job, I don't like the status quo, I'm voting for something else, and he was
I
the person.
love you to life,
I love you.
but I do not believe that. I cannot believe that. And the reason I think you believe it is because you don't want to believe that that's what's really motivating them. It's always the case. People don't want to believe what the country actually is, because if they believe it, they're going to have to confront what's in them. I don't believe that. They voted for a crook, a person who they know is stealing from, just doing everything to undermine the so-called country that they love. And then they're telling us the BS that it's economics. We know that's not true.
Yeah. So this guy, Eddie Glaude Jr., is a professor of woke studies, African American studies, at Princeton University. And people like him are a great example of the problem with academia. People like him are a great example of exactly what the Trump administration needs to focus on when it comes to de-wokeifying this country, right? Because the job is not done yet, okay? Although a lot of young people voted for Trump, okay, this country is rejecting wokeism. The ideological brainwashing that is happening at the college level in these institutions, that has to be addressed, because individuals like him are teaching our children, right? I mean, they're teaching the children that are supposed to be the most talented children in this country, right? This is why so many of these young people are so brainwashed, and now they're losing their minds over Trump winning because they legitimately believe that Trump is some type of threat towards minorities, okay? Now, with that being said, my main point in this video is this. As long as the left continues to platform these Looney Tunes, again, it's going to be hard for the Democrats to thread the needle, okay? I'm so serious about that. I'm so serious because you don't see these types of race hustlers and individuals on right-leaning platforms. You don't see these individuals on Newsmax. You don't see them on Fox News. Basically, the only place that you see the right-wing version of that guy is on the internet, right? And it's not on mainstream internet platforms, right? I mean, those individuals that are the equivalent of that guy on the right have essentially been banned from mainstream media, okay? And also on most of the platforms online, okay? That's essentially what has happened. So again, it's funny because you don't see the right-wing equivalent of that guy, okay, of that type of extremism on mainstream right-wing channels. You don't see that, okay? But it is extremely prevalent on not just left-wing platforms, but we're also talking about liberal media platforms. ABC, NBC, MSNBC, CNN. These types of Looney Tunes, these race hustlers, these extremists, because that's what this guy is. He's an extremist, are openly platformed on these mainstream outlets, right? And as long as that is the case, people can reasonably point the finger at that individual and say, yeah, that individual is a representation of the Democrat Party. And again, that is why so many people are leaving the Democrat Party. This is why you have so many people who have decided, you know what, we're going to support Trump. Trump has the most quote-unquote diverse coalition of working class minorities that we've ever seen support a GOP candidate. Why is that? Well, it's because the left-wing loonies are literally turning off everybody. The reality is that Trump didn't win just because white people decided to vote for him. Trump won because everybody decided, hey, we want to vote for him. But despite this reality, despite these clear facts, this individual refuses to acknowledge that, hey, maybe there's something outside of racism and hate that brings people together that would make them want to vote for somebody like Trump. Like, I don't know, the economy's stupid. No, we can't accept that. I can't accept that. The whole country is racist. That is the only explanation that this individual is willing to accept. In fact, a lot of these individuals aren't willing to accept any criticism of Kamala Harris whatsoever. Any criticism of Kamala Harris is a form of bigotry, racism.
I'm gonna keep it $1.50 with y'all, right? Some of the criticisms I've seen of the Democratic Party, while completely valid, I completely encourage criticism. I think it's healthy, it's done right. It's kind of getting a little, it's getting a wee bit of an issue. It's getting real close to racism territory, okay? We got to remember a black woman, a black East Asian woman was running, okay? I don't think it's fair to use her as a scapegoat in this, okay? I think we need to evenly distribute criticism. I'm not saying that she's above criticism because she's a black woman before people get in my comments talking about that. I am saying that the way this criticism is coming out is not giving productive. I know we're angry. I know we are not happy with the results of this election, and there's many different reasons that led to this, okay? It is not just the Democratic Party that led to this result. Just throwing that out there too. But I just need us to be aware of our position in this conversation. Aware of the privilege we bring into this conversation. And the power dynamic, unfortunately, that we also bring into this conversation. Okay? I'm not talking about one particular person. I've seen it from a few people. I get it. We're angry. But we really got to remember who we talking about, because black women are really hurting right now. Okay? And you have to remember, like, black women keep being the ones to keep everybody, like, to lead the fight for human rights here. And a black woman was doing that in this case. It's not just the voters. There was literally one running for president. So, like, I'm just saying, we can be critical while also being aware. That's all I'm saying. Also, let's take a step back as well. We had this woman, she campaigned hard as fuck. Day one, just out the gate, was working day, night, bus, club, another club. She was going, okay, while the other candidate was going off of vibes, okay? And they were racist ones too. They were homophobic ones. Xenophobic ones. Let's keep the plot in mind, okay? This is like class A example of glass cliff theory. So, and if you don't know what that is, that means that she is literally she was put in an impossible position to save us all. That happens all the time, especially with companies and CEOs. A lot of time when a company is doing shit, that is when they're like, let's appoint our first female president CEO. And then when it tanks, that's when they're like, oh, it was her fault. Let's not do that, please.
Yeah, as long as Democrats decide that they want to get in bed with these types of people, they're just going to have a hard time. They're going to have a really hard time, because I think that this country has rejected this, right? This country is so sick and tired of this idea that you can't criticize black people just because they're black. You can't criticize women just because they're women. They shouldn't be held accountable for anything at all, okay? And half the country's racist just because they don't agree with the far left. The country is rejecting this. And the extremists are doubling and tripling down on the extremism, right? And as long as these liberal media platforms like ABC, NBC, CNN, as long as they platform this type of stuff, it's going to be hard for Democrats to disconnect themselves from it. It's going to be hard for Democrats to say, hey, we're not associated with that, because your propaganda arms are platforming it, right? Again, it's funny how the Democrats advocate for censorship of those on the right, because their viewpoints are too extreme. they might want to think about doing that for their side, right? Because inadvertently here, whether they understand it or not, again, on the right, on the mainstream platforms, Fox News, again, you don't get these type of Looney Tunes, which means it's really hard to associate the average Republican or Trump supporter or whatever with the right-wing extremists, okay? Because, again, they're not being platformed on these mainstream platforms, right? But when you're platforming the Elon Mastals of the world, the Eddie Glaudes of the world, the Joy Reids of the world, right? All of these extremists, yeah, it's easy to point to that and say, yeah, that is what the Democrat Party is. They just hate everybody who doesn't agree with them, right? They just hate everybody that doesn't agree with them. I'm just saying. I mean, I hope they continue to platform these individuals. I'm just saying that maybe the Democrats should, I don't know, consider doing some things on their side of the aisle that they always advocate to do to the other side of the aisle. Maybe that will help their party look more sane. But as long as these individuals are leading the charge in your party, yeah, you cannot be a party of sanity, right? And people are not going to vote for you. They're not going to support that. So, hey, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.